Hello, everybody, and good morning. Rachel Rothman here from Nutrition in Bloom. And today I am here to talk about what to do when your little one won't try a new food. This is always a big topic because we want our kids to eat and we want our kids to eat what we make. And a lot of the time, especially for those who are a little bit more selective, it doesn't always go according to plan. Are you with me? I hope so. So, if you are new here, I just want to introduce myself. I am a pediatric dietitian and feeding expert, and I help parents have happier, stress free meal times by feeding their kids without pressure, without bribing, without forcing, and really just helping parents to help their kids have a positive and healthy relationship with food from the inside out. So, no matter where your child is from a feeding perspective, whether they're eating a lot of foods, whether they're selective and only eating a few foods, I can absolutely help because that is what I do, and I help you feel confident in what you are doing as well. I work with families from a one-on-one standpoint. I also have a online program which is part online, part group, and part one-on-one. So it's really awesome because you're able to maximize the support that you need. So I will link to some of that here. And if you have questions, I also offer free 15-minute discovery calls. So I would love to chat with anybody who has questions as well. So, what to do when your little one won't try a new food, which happens all the time. In my house, I imagine it happens in your house too. I just want to say, don't worry about it. That is honestly like the biggest piece here. And I know that it can be hard, it can be frustrating, it can be just feel very personal, right? When we've like spent time making a food and they're not going to try it. But the biggest thing is not to worry about it. I find that we as parents and caregivers can sometimes feel so focused on just wanting their child to eat a food, but we've got to take a step back. And especially for children who are more selective, where feeding is challenging, it can take them a really long time to try a new food. And I don't say that to be daunting. I don't say that for you to be like, okay, I'm giving up. But why I say that is because I want you to know that trying a new food is sure, it can be a goal, but I like to help families not necessarily set that piece of like really wanting them to try new food as a goal, because when it takes a long time, it can sometimes be very challenging. Hi, Brenda's joining us live. Hey, Brenda, let me know if you have any questions here. So, think about what is your goal of that new food piece, and how can you maybe let a little bit of that go. So what I like to focus on, I never focus on trying a new food as like the ultimate goal, but what I like to think about is how can we give our children opportunities for exposures and interactions based on where they are at right now. That is going to look very differently for everybody. Again, that is going to look very differently for everybody. If you have a child who is extremely selective and maybe very sensitive, let's say to taste, to texture, to smell, your child might not even be able to be at a table with a certain smell. And we need to meet the child where they are at. What I have found, and what research also shows, so this is not just me saying that, is that when a child comes to the table, or when there is fear involved in eating, like they're scared, they're bothered, they're upset, it is harder for them to eat, right? I mean, I don't think that's like a new profound statement, but it is going to be harder for them to eat. So we have to meet the child where they're at. So if a child isn't able to tolerate that smell, then that's okay. Can we maybe put that food in the kitchen away from the table? Or does the child even need to sit maybe far away from the table? On the other side of things, maybe you have a child who's okay with smells, but texture is really hard from them. Maybe they can interact with the food by just picking it up and looking at it. That is still an interaction. Something that we like to do at my house, especially with my youngest who can be more selective, is we do what's sometimes called a finger taste, where she will take a food and use her finger to like wipe it on the food and then lick her finger. This is all, though, not pressure. This is all if she wants to do it, great. If she doesn't, that's okay too. Because, and this is why I take that big goal of trying a new food being the only feeding win. That's why I take it out of this equation, because that puts pressure on the child, right? When we have that goal, when we need them to lick the food, when we need them to smell the food. So that's why we do this, by allowing them to do it at a place that feels right for them. So that might be just touching the food. That might be licking the food. That might be taking a bite of the food and spitting it out. So all of these things, I think of them as feeding wins. Brenda said, it's so true about the smell. I cannot eat tuna close to my son. I try not to get frustrated and be understanding. Yes, yes. And, I know I've shared this story before about like a new food. Like, let's say you go somewhere and you are offered this brand new food that you have never eaten, that you don't know what it is, that is slimy or weird, or, let's say it's worms. Okay, for a lot of kids, that's what new foods are, or that's how the sensory aspect of new foods feel. So they are not doing this to try to be defiant or bad, but these are things that happen to them. I think about myself. I have foods that I don't eat and that I don't like the smell of. Sure, I can tolerate them because my sensory experience might not be that strong, but there are certain foods, if I eat it, I cannot stand them. So I want you to think about that piece of it. So why am I saying all this? Because I want you to remember that any interaction or exposure to a food is a feeding win and is a positive. Now, in my work, in my practice, in my programs, one of the things that I focus a lot on is our own mindset. And I don't expect parents to change their mindset like overnight. I don't expect after this video you to be like, cool, I've got it, like I'm gonna be good. Obviously, this is why I work with families over a period of time. But when we can shift that expectation just a little bit, feel confident about what we're doing, that is when this like magical piece of feeding happens. Brenda said feeding wins are amazing. Yes. So I want you to remember that your little one not trying a new food is okay. They will eventually get there on their own terms, and we have to remember that. We have to remember that the more we pressure, the more we try to force, the more we intervene, so to speak, the harder it's going to be for them to actually eat the food. It's like we're going to be butting heads with them, right? So we've got to take it down. We've got to lower the pressure. We've got to lower the fear. Now, if you're listening this and you're like, yes, I think that's true. However, my child needs to eat X, Y, or Z to meet their needs, then let's chat, because I find, and I have videos on this too, but I find that like, let's look at it. Like, is your child meeting their needs? And how can we make sure they're meeting their needs based on whatever that looks like right now? That might not be a bunch of fruits and vegetables. That might be with a multivitamin or supplement. That might be with some kind of oral supplement, like some kind of shake or drink or something like that. Or, maybe not. But we need to feel good about that piece of things so that we can open up to this idea of feeding wins, something that is going to be positive and something that we can look at where we're not feeling disappointed when they don't try the new food. Okay? And so think like all these things that are feeding wins would be like tolerating, licking, smelling, even, okay, here's another feeding win. Just sitting down at the table for 2 minutes with your child and asking them a question about their day and they don't even eat any food. That is still a feeding win. Okay, I know you might look at it and be like, that's not a feeding win. My child didn't eat anything. It is, because you are creating a positive association with mealtime. And that's what we've got to do. I think sometimes we're so focused on the food and what they're eating or not eating and X, Y, and Z. And yes, obviously I'm a dietitian, right? I want your kids to meet their needs. I want them to eat a variety. I want them to get the right nutrition. But when we sometimes focus, we are losing the big picture. Okay. I'm done. I want you to take action with this video. I want you, if you have a selective eater at home, I want you to remember that any interaction or any exposure is a feeding win. And I want you, if you feel comfortable, share with me, what is that win that happened today? You can message me if you feel comfortable. You could journal about it at home. But the more that we can start focusing on some of those positives, the better it's going to be for our experience feeding our kids and our kids' experience with that healthy relationship, that positive relationship with food, so that they feel good about what they're eating. Okay, I am done for today. Thank you for listening. Again, Rachel here from Nutrition in Bloom. Follow me, join me. I'll share a link to my email list that's called actually 4 Steps to Help Your Little One Try New Food. So it goes a little bit deeper into what we just talked about today. Wishing you a day filled with calmness, peace, hopefully some good food for yourself and maybe for your kid as well. Bye for now.